Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you've traveled all the way to South Africa for a cause that is particularly close to your heart, and it manifested in a documentary that you were an executive producer on called Extinction Soup. Now,
Yes.
that's quite a name and it's quite a topic. Won't you introduce us to it?
Extinction Soup is a documentary about basically the trade of fins. It's actually about more storylines than just that, but the core of it is the issue of the international trade of shark fins.
Now, I don't think many people who aren't involved in advocacy or even the industry understand the extent. But in just watching the trailer, very brief trailer for your film, you understand that this is not something that is happening to one or two or three sharks every couple of months. This is huge.
It wouldn't be an issue if it only happened to a few sharks a month. It is an issue because we're talking about anywhere from 28 to 100 million sharks per year. And I have to say this number is has such a great range because there's only so much data that can be proven from direct reporting and actual voluntary reporting. And of course, there's a huge amount of unregulated, unreported fishing, and the numbers from markets that actually sell the fins were added to the reported fins, and this is where the variance is. But it's pretty sure to say that about 70 million sharks are killed just for the purpose of using their fins per year.
Now, the fins are used in a soup, in a type of delicacy.
Yeah.
Why is that the case? I suppose it's a difficult question, but where does
No,
this
it's
come
not
from?
a difficult question. Unfortunately, it is a status symbol in some of the Asian countries, and it is spreading more so. It used to be strictly for royalty and for the very rich. And with a rising middle class in Asian countries, especially in China, more people could afford it and actually wanted to afford it because it is a great sign of respect when you serve it to a guest. So it's not necessarily that you want to eat it, but I want to serve it to you because I want to show you how important you are to me. So I do understand why that would be very tempting. The problem is that a lot of people don't realize what it does to the ocean and the ecosystems by wiping out sharks, but also it is very hard to battle because it becomes a cultural issue. And but even on the cultural front, people are starting to be divided about it. So it is becoming more of an issue that people know about and make better choices about.
In fact, many of the people who I've read about or who are speaking out on the issue are saying that just because it's cultural doesn't make it right. In fact, there are many aspects of our different cultures that we've come to realize are not helpful. Yeah. So, Steph, I want to ask you, what do you say to the person who says, well, Steph, that's all good and well, it's in the ocean. It has absolutely no bearing on my life. Why should I care?
Yeah,
what do you say to them?
It is actually, this is something that really, that question actually upsets me because we're so dirt-centric. We're always looking at only the land, and 70% of our planet is ocean. So for us to be ignoring what happens in the oceans is, from a selfish point of view, it's actually detrimental to us. I personally think we shouldn't always have to, judge everything by how much value there is to us, and there's a lot of value in keeping the ecosystem healthy. It shouldn't have to just be for money reasons, but also from an economic point of view, destroying the ocean resources is not going to help anyone. And sharks being the top predators, they are actually the regulating factor in the oceans for a lot of the fish stock. And in order to keep fishing, and if you want to have healthy tuna stocks, if you want to have healthy anything in the ocean, you have to have healthy predators. So it has so many facets to it. So there are many reasons you should care. If the least of all should be money, but it is probably the biggest reason. But also, we depend on the ocean, and the ocean depends on sharks. As simple as that.
In fact, it can be summarized to that one sentence.
Yeah.
Now, you describe in the documentary that in a way we are gaining momentum with this movement in a way that has never been seen before. Explain to us about this movement.
I think the issue of shark finning was addressed from many different ways, but in Hawaii we came across a really good opportunity when we wrote a bill that approached it from a different direction. What we did is, with the help of a really clever senator and his staff, we wrote the bill as a trade bill, where it is, rather than a fisheries enforcement bill, it was a trade issue, basically saying that the sale and the possession and the trade of fins was prohibited, which makes it an issue that can be enforced on land, not on the ocean. So you don't have to worry about people being departments being understaffed and not being able to regulate the whole ocean. It's where the fins are landed is where it is actually being enforced. That legislation became a model legislation once it passed. It set a precedent, and instantly many other U.S. states followed with the exact same bill. Of course, always changing it a little bit depending on the local issues. And it has traveled all across the Pacific, and in the newest place right now would be, hopefully, Western Australia will be introducing something. I'm not directly involved. I'm providing the film to be a sort of a kickstart for one of the efforts. And then there's activist groups there that are taking the Hawaii bill and they're modeling it into their own thing. So in a way, it's taken on its own life. And a lot of people have used it as a tool to get something done that couldn't really be tackled before.
I think the phenomenal thing about this is that, like you've mentioned, this film can be used by so many people around the world.
Mm-hmm.
In South Africa, of course, we're just surrounded by water, by an
Mm-hmm.
ocean, and despite the fact that this film wasn't made in our waters, it's really applicable to our waters. Are you encouraging people around the world to take the film and use it for this purpose?
Yes, of course, and I think the shark conservation network is quite tight, and we all sort of know each other. And this is a plan of, everybody's trying to use the tools that we have available. Most ocean conservation groups are underfunded, chronically underfunded, so we have to use everything that we have. And so we're always working together, and also by finding the willing legislators, the politicians that actually want to do something, we try to put all of our support behind them, because ultimately it's them that will create the laws. And when it becomes illegal, it's a lot easier to enforce something than when it is legal. Despite the fact that most people think that, okay, you make something illegal, then there will be a huge amount of black market value, it actually hasn't proven to be like that at all, because it's all about the dynamics of how much money the middlemen and the traders can make. And when they don't see much value in it anymore because it becomes too hard to get, oftentimes they'll completely drop that product, which is something we've seen with shark fins, that there were traders that have actually completely stopped trading in shark fins now. So that's a really great consequence and a great result. And of course, that was something nobody believed could happen. So you really don't know until you try. That's always the fact. In a lot of places, people said this can't happen because of the cultural significance. It can't happen because there's too much money behind it. But I would say 8 out of 10 places that have tried have succeeded. So it's not so impossible.
Now, you're in South Africa for this film to be shown here in Cape Town, first of all, at the Eco Film Festival,
Mm-hmm.
and you were at the opening last night. Speak to us a little bit about that.
It was wonderful. The theater was nearly full, which is nice to see, because I always wonder how much interest there will be in a city for environmental programs. And the films really that are going to be shown in this week, it's a great selection of films. So if anyone has time to go, you should see at least 1 or 2 of them. And these may be films that will never make it on TV or the big screen, because they are issues oriented, they're not blockbusters, but it's a very easy way to get educated about some of the issues that are really important right now.
I think that it's so important that we watch these films,
Mm-hmm.
and in just watching the little snippets that I had access to of Extinction Soup, it's not easy to watch the film. You really are faced with the truth of what's happening, and it's not pretty in a way. Why was it important for you to put those bits into your film?
Well, first of all, when you watch the film, I can tell you it has a happy ending. It has a very positive ending. And I think it's important to show some of the cruelty and to make it clear to people why this is such a disaster. Visually, you have to show people what millions of shark fins actually look like, so it gets imprinted in your brain. Otherwise, people just go, oh, it's just another fish, what's the problem? So it is important to have a little bit of a shock value, but then to climb back out and say, okay, but this is what we're actually doing about it, and this is how all of us can help. And I think that's a very important thing that documentaries have to do, because otherwise it's too depressing and nobody will want to see it. And maybe the trailer is a little bit too hard-hitting, and we're actually working on making several other trailers as well. But then again, it's not an easy subject, and how you can't really sugarcoat it. And like so many things, same as ivory, how do you sugarcoat killing an elephant for ivory? There's no easy way to do it. You can't make fun of it. You can't make it lighthearted. It is what it is.
I absolutely don't think that it's too hard-hitting. I thought it was absolutely perfect.
Thank you.
Now, when can we see Extinction Soup, and where can we see it?
It's at the, I hope I pronounce this right, the Labia.
That's correct.
Okay. And,
just a bit of a tricky one, that.
Well, yes, it's Extinction Soup is on Wednesday the 31st, I believe at 6 o'clock, or 6:15, and it's also on in Johannesburg on the 1st, on Thursday. And I believe those are the two remaining screenings. But there are films going on every night in the theaters, I believe until the 2nd. So there's something worth watching every night.
Now, how can we interact with Extinction Soup online? I know that you have a website and a presence online.
We have extinctionsoupmovie.com, and of course the Facebook page Extinction Soup, which is usually the place where we update, for new screenings and new sort of developments. That's the easier one to update.
Brilliant. So we can keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.